by the time few more moments, that sensation goes off, and another kind of sensation, another kind of feeling arises. So when we watch, when we observe keenly, we see how these processes, mental and physical, are constantly subject to change. But because we are not aware, because as long as the mind is not able to see clearly, then the mind takes this whole aggregates in the form of an entity, in the form of a body, in the form of a name, in the form of a label. And so we call ourselves by these names, and we attach to these names. And this is what we call attachment to these five aggregates. And that is what the Buddha says is dukkha. This is the most subtle and the most profound explanation of dukkha. Then come back to the second noble truth. Just as a doctor, a physician, will analyze when a patient comes to visit him, he will first see the patient and diagnose the sickness. Upon recognizing this is the sickness, this is the illness that he's suffering from, he diagnoses and he sees the cause of it. What is the cause of the sickness? Seeing the cause, he also sees whether he is able to cure that patient, to what extent he is able to cure. Then, when he comes to know that this is the cause and that this kind of sickness is curable, then he prescribes the medicine. So the Buddha too, in fact, we regard the Buddha as a great physician. And this is where the epithet, he was called Bhaisajja Guru. In Sanskrit, the Buddha is also known as Bhaisajja Guru. In Pali, Bhaisajja, that is medicine. Bhaisajja is medicine. Guru is teacher. So he is a teacher of medicine. And because the Dhamma that he proclaims is a very effective medicine. It's not so much of medicine for the body, for the physical part of the body, but it is a medicine for the mind. So the Buddha too analyzed the situation in these formula, that there is dukkha, there is suffering, there is dis-ease. Dis-ease where there is, when you are at ease, and you are comfortable, you feel fairly comfortable when you are at ease. But the situation is that we are not always, we are constantly at dis-ease. Not diseases, not illness, but dis-ease, and that is what we say, dukkha. We are not at ease. Are you at ease now? Your mind, is your mind at ease? If your mind is at ease, your mind will be fairly contented. Contentment. Then where there is contentment, there is no peak, there is no highs. But today, when people talk about happiness, they talk about the high, the peak. Where there is a peak, there is also the bottom one. There's high, there is low. So when we talk about that happiness, we actually speak about the kind of contentment that we are able to hold, that balanced state of mind, upekkha, where there is no peak, there is just that awareness, and there is no aversion, no craving, no clinging, no aversion. It is just observing, seeing things as they arise. And the mind is at equilibrium. Now, when the Buddha realized that this is dukkha, he also saw the cause. And then, seeing the cause, he also sees that it is possible to put an end to it, the cessation of suffering, of dukkha. And then he also, seeing that it is possible to end it, and he knows, he points out the path, the prescription, how to end suffering, how to end unsatisfactoriness. So there you are, you have these four noble truths. The Buddha, like a doctor, prescribes, sees the disease, dukkha, the cause of it, the end or the cessation, and the path that leads to the cessation. These are the four noble truths. We talk in terms of four noble truths, but when you begin to realize these four noble truths, there is only one truth. In other words, when you begin to see, if you truly experience dukkha or unsatisfactoriness, when you really realize it, then you will also see the cause. And if you happen to see the cause of suffering, you will also see the others. In other words, you will see the end and the way. Just as a skillful physician, the moment he analyzes, the moment he sees that sickness, he sees your throat. And there is some signs there in your throat. Immediately, when he is able to see the disease, he recognizes the disease, immediately he also knows the cause, he knows that it can be cured, and he knows what prescription to give. So there is this one whole thing, they are connected. But we, for the sake of understanding, for the sake of teaching, we explain them in terms of the Four Noble Truths. Now, last week I have spoken about the cause. And what is the cause of all dukkha? What is the cause of suffering? Now, in the Dhammapada, you will find Buddha mentions tanha. Tanha jayate soko, tanha jayate bhaya. That is greed. Craving is the cause of all suffering. Greed or craving is the cause of fear. If there is no greed, if there is no craving, if there is no attachment, there is no suffering, there is no fear. It is because of our attachment to this body that we fear death. When we become sick, fear arises. And also because we are attached to the other members of our family, we are attached to our property, we are attached to the shares, and then whenever something arises, certain conditions arises, condition changes, then we begin to get upset. Fear arises. And sorrow arises. When we lose something, which we have been attached to for a long time, then grief arises. So sorrow and fear can be traced back to craving, desire in the mind. As long as there is desire in one form or another, the desire or craving can manifest, can turn towards and become aversion. On the one extreme, there is the desire, craving, to please the senses, to indulge in the senses. On the other extreme, there is aversion. But that is also another kind of craving. It's the negative aspect of it. So both are not good. Both cause suffering. That is why, if we want to get out of suffering, if we want to get out of problems, conflicts, then we have to know how to overcome, how to subdue this craving, and how to subdue aversion. Now, there are, when we talk about craving, we spoke of three kinds of craving. Three kinds of craving, three kinds of tanha. What are the three kinds of tanha? Kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha. There is the craving with regards to sensuality. In other words, the desire to please the senses. Desire to please our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, the body, and the mind. Now, when we indulge in these various senses, then the more we indulge in them, the more unsatisfactoriness we see. So when we see this, then that is how the practice of restraint, the practice of sila or precepts or moral rules, training rules, is the main purpose is to restrain the senses, so that the mind does not overindulge us, as we do not overindulge in our senses. When the mind is indulging, or when one indulges in senses, then all these different faculties, the energies, are being dispersed, diffused, and the mind is weakened. But when we restrain our senses, now when you close your eyes, what happens? You become more sensitive to the sound. You also become more sensitive to feelings, sensation. When you don't cling to the sound and avoid clinging to the sensation, reacting to sensation, then you begin to see more clearly, you become more sensitive to your thoughts. Whatever thoughts, whatever ideas, whatever concepts that arises, you become aware of them. That is where, because that is the very important thing, to become aware of the thoughts. In fact, the very first twin verses of the Dhammapada, the sayings of the Buddha, you find Mano Pubbangama Dhamma Mano Siddha Mano Maya. Buddha says that mind is the forerunner of all events. Mind is the chief. Mind is the pivot. Everything is mind-made. Yes. And that is what we have been discussing, that sicknesses, whatever sicknesses that you have, you can trace it directly or indirectly to this mind. And medicine or medical science today speaks in terms of psychosomatic sickness. So the mind strengthens the mind by restraining the senses. Kama tanha is the clinging to kama, sensuality. Then another kind of tanha, another kind of craving is what we call bhava tanha. Bhava tanha. That is the craving for existence. All beings crave to live. All beings crave for their lives. They desire to live on. And as long as there is this craving for existence, as long as one exists in one form or another, there is unsatisfactoriness. Even when they say that they are happy, when they are laughing, then how long can they laugh? They laugh only for a certain period of time. After that, they change, different moods. Then, when we see how that happiness, laughter, with laughter, after a little while it stops. So it is not permanent, it is transient. So we see that that kind of happiness is also unsatisfactory. But that is why we say that kind of happiness is also dukkha. And those who are unable to see this may think that Buddhism is a fairly pessimistic philosophy, because Buddhism says everything is dukkha. No. The Buddha has acknowledged, or we acknowledge the existence of happiness. We acknowledge the existence of sensual pleasures. People get excited, people enjoy their lives, but how long do they enjoy? How much can they enjoy? To what extent do they enjoy? There is always the peak and they come to very low. In other words, it changes. And anything that changes is unsatisfactory. That is how we say it is dukkha. Then there is the craving, the desire not to become, not to exist. On the one hand, there is a craving, there is the desire to exist, to become something, to become somebody. Those who have graduated in the school days, they want to become an engineer, they want to become a lawyer. When they are already an engineer, a lawyer, are they satisfied? Now they want to get married. Now they want to become a father. After they have become a father, are they happy? No, they are not happy, because now they want to become a grandfather. And when they are a grandfather, are they happy? No. Now they think, oh, I'm going to die, and next, where am I going? I want to go to heaven. So they want to go to heaven. And so they want to exist somewhere. And generally, most people want to exist forever. So they want to go to heaven, they want to remain in heaven permanently. That is how the idea of everlasting heaven, everlasting paradise came about. It is actually man's mind to please one's desires, to please his extreme craving for sensual pleasures, that he hopes that if only I can be born someplace and it will be permanent. Unfortunately, in Buddhism, although we accommodate the existence of heavenly, celestial planes of existence, where there are beings there who can satisfy their senses far greater extent than human beings. This afternoon we have discussed in the class how beings in those realms of existence, the heavenly realms of existence, they are not born with father or mother, because father and mother is sometimes big hindrance, isn't it? You want to renounce, they don't like, and you want to become free, become a monk, father don't allow, mother don't allow, big hindrance, isn't it? How nice next time you be born without father and mother, you are just independent there. And not only that, they are born, such beings are born, not only without mother and father, they are born as a full-grown being. So they don't have to, go through that infant, the stages of infant and the stages of what you call little one having to study for examination and have to study all the languages and the difficulty and sit for exam, and then after that, how nice, isn't it? If you can just, you live and you appear somewhere, full grown. And then, not only that, their lifespan is very long, so they don't grow old so quickly. And in fact, they don't grow old, they don't look old also. And then, not only that, their food is different. They don't have to eat the food so much as we do. Their food, they say, happiness sometimes, when they see people doing good, people doing meritorious actions, that is their food, no? That is why you're sharing merits to devas. You are, at that time when you share merits, when you think of the devas, then that is your dinner invitation to them, no? In other words, you are inviting them to participate. They become happy. That is their food. And of course, certain other devas have different kinds of food, but generally the good ones are happy. Happiness is their food. Sometimes when you are happy, you don't feel hungry, isn't it? That happiness is a kind of food. No? But we are not happy, you are always hungry. So, now, this craving for existence, craving to become, is a cause of dukkha, a cause of unsatisfactoriness. Craving not to become. You don't want to become that person. You don't want to become that person. And, eventually there's no other way. You have to go back there. And you have to become that. That's dukkha. The fact that you don't want to become, you push, right? That is also dukkha. That gives rise to dukkha. And you don't want to exist. Now, this is manifested very strongly in those who, after having lived a life of, they are fed up with their lives, then if they cherish this thought, if this view is in their mind, that if this craving for non-existence is there, this is how such being can go to the extent of committing suicide. Because they don't want to exist. But the fact that you don't want to exist does not mean to say that you can stop there. If you don't want to exist, it is a kind of aversion, it is a kind of craving. Halfway through they regret. And this regret leads to a confused state of mind. When the mind is confused, then that confused mind conditions an unpleasant or not so unhappy rebirth. It is only when the mind is peaceful, when the mind is unconfused. That unconfused state of mind can condition happy birth. So if you want to be happy, or rather if you want to be happy next life, to be born in a happy plane, then it is important to have good thoughts and develop strong good tendencies, so that at the last moments the good thought, the good tendency will dominate. And when these good thoughts arises, that good thoughts will condition good birth, happy birth. That is, if you are thinking of existing some more. While, many people have not finished their duty, so they like to go on. Even if we tell you that it is possible for you to attain Nibbana here and now. How many of you like? You say, no, after Novitiate program. You say, some of you may say, I have to go through, wait, another 2 years' time, after, and then some others will say, wait till my children grow up. And see. Anyway, what I shall be talking tonight will be on the third noble truth. That is with regards to the cessation of suffering. So that now in these four noble truths, the first noble truth and the second noble truth speaks about dukkha, speaks about suffering. But the third and the fourth noble truth does not speak about dukkha. They speak about the end of dukkha. The end of dukkha means the end of suffering. The end of suffering means what? It means peace, happiness, the way to happiness, happiness and the way to happiness. So, the third noble truth is nirodha. Nirodha refers to the cessation of suffering. Now, what do we mean by the cessation of suffering? We say happiness. And most people understand that when there is no suffering, then there is happiness. But what is happiness? So let us understand the concept of happiness from the Buddhist point of view. And what do people think about happiness? When they think of happiness, they always refer to the kind of excitement that they get. And when they are thrilled, when they get certain excitement, then they say they are happy. But when all the thrills are gone, then they say they are not happy. They become bored. So that is not the kind of happiness that we refer to. That happiness is of a worldly nature. So in other words, when we talk about happiness, if we want to use this word happiness, then we are using there are two kinds of happiness, right? Happiness with regards to worldly happiness or sensual pleasures, the pleasures you derive through your senses. When you see something, when you see some pleasant object, then pleasant feeling arise. That you get some happiness, some excitement there. Now that kind of happiness is dependent upon outside, dependent upon things, dependent upon the sensors and the sense object. It depends upon your eye and the visual object. Depends on your ears and the sound. When you are in what you call, when you are upset and you want to make yourself happy, what do? You turn on some music, right? Music that you like, and then you feed what? Feed your ear. You feed the ear, and then after feeding the ear, when the ear is enjoying already full, saturated, then all the other parts of the body is also being fed. That is how you start to shake your head, and then after that the hands start beating, and then the legs start jumping, and then the whole body trembles. That is how you start to shake your head, and then after that the hands start beating, and then the legs start jumping, and then the whole body trembles. And then you say, oh, I really enjoy this music. When your body starts trembling, you say, oh, beautiful music. When the music stops, then everything freezes. Then you get angry. When your father switch off what you call the music, you furious. See the nature of your happiness? How short-lived, how short the lifespan of that happiness. When it goes immediately off. Well, that is what you call worldly happiness. Happiness which is dependent on worldly things. And not only things, but also people. You get happiness with your friends. With husband derives happiness from the wife. Wife derives happiness from the husband. Parents derive happiness from children. Children also derive happiness from parents. But if we carefully observe the situation, the same husband that derives happiness from the wife, from the same wife, not from different wife, from same wife, that same wife can be a big headache. The next moment, one moment she laughs and smiles, and next moment she changes the mood and finish. Husband also, no more happy now. Children too are like that. When the parents make the children happy, buy some new clothes and buy some toys and give the young ones, and how nice and happy the child is. And when the child plays with the toys and throw and fall, break. Start crying. And then see how happy the parents are. They also change. This is the transient nature. So really the things. Now those of you who bought your lottery ticket and you got some first prize, or I do not know, maybe prize winners here. And when you win the prize also, you got a house. And you want to take the house, you come and see, what now? Recession, cannot sell. I got one house already. How to stay in that house? You keep the house there, it's empty, only hantus will go there. And so, if not, drug addicts we can't go there. So you think it is a burden to you again. If you think like that, then when you think you consider how burdensome it is, then you might as well give back the horse. This is only a suggestion for you. You see? Now, similarly, and yes, the very things that you possess, let it be a house, a car, whatever, you are happy for one moment. Then the next moment you begin to think, I have to look after it, And when the children are away, I am left alone. And the house, the wind blows, dust accumulates, windows, chairs, I have to work. Big house, big work. More work. So that is how, you see how some people, they realize, troublesome. But in the beginning, how they crave for big ones. And they say, must have many doors, and, skylight here, and not only that, they want what you call marble floor, and at first, then when they have the marble floor, they grow a little bit old and the leg very painful, and then it's so cold now. Now cannot walk on the marble floor. Anyway, now some people suggest use slippers. Then they use slippers and very slippery. And then they say, if not, we put a carpet on top of it. So you see how people, they change their flooring from mosaic floor to terrazzo, from terrazzo to marble. And after changing it to marble, they find that is not satisfactory. They have to put carpet on top of it. And see how, this is how actually the mind. And the mind which is tainted with the craving, desires, because you're not able to see the true function, the real purpose of living. And that is why when they came as novices, among the first thing that they have to learn is to recognize the purpose of using the basic requisites of life. You can ask them, what is the purpose of eating? They will tell you. Do you know the purpose of eating? You think you know? Why do you eat? Next you can ask them, no? And people eat for different reasons. Some people will say they eat to please their tongue. Of course, you want different taste. That is, you want to please your tongue. So some people, before they eat, they must smell first. They must please their nose. If there is no good smell, they won't eat. That is why they fry until it becomes chowta, and then they eat. And again, people eat to please their eyes. They eat for their eyes. Because they want to see, it must be cut like this, and the carrot must be cut like this. It must have this design, and this color, the cake, you must have this color. This color must go with this texture. Many people eat for their tongue, for their nose, for their eyes, but not for their body. So that's why the stomach complains. The stomach protests. You see? You are eating everything you chuck inside here. You don't think of me. Of course, because the stomach got to digest all these different colors. green color, blue color, red color, and all the essence and all the fragrance they are to these things. Huh? So much so they protest so greatly that when they come out very bad smell. That is the result of the protest and things. So whatever sweet smelling you take in, it comes out, one smell. And now when we begin to see, this is the true nature of it. It is the true nature, but we don't want to see these things. And that is why we are not prepared. Most people are not prepared to see the reality of this situation. That is why when they go to the stool and when they clear their bowels, and they don't want to smell. They just, they pump it and then some fragrance, spray, and that's it. So they think, who are they bluffing? They're bluffing themselves. That's very beautiful and fragrant, nicely. Now, when we begin to see the reality, watch and see the reality, the food becomes like that. Then, when we contemplate properly, then the desire, the craving for food becomes loosened. In other words, reduced. When you see all what you eat goes down the drain. And then you begin to eat for your health. Eat for health. Again, what for? This health, for what? Oh, some people say health so that I can go jogging. More energy. Just for that? Why do you jog for? You say, oh, healthy. Now doctor says that, the more you jog, healthy you become, but your lifespan, you die healthy. The only difference is that, a person who jogs and a person who does not jog is a jogger dies very fit. And there are really no great evidence to show that jogging can cure sicknesses. No? But because where is the sicknesses coming up from? The mind. The tension, the worries in the mind. When they jog temporarily they have to jog, they have to think. When they are tired, they don't think of their problems. So they think, oh, I am free, I am relaxed. But the moment they sit down, their mind comes and play, And the more hungry they are, the more they want to eat, the more they drink. They take Coca-Cola and this and how much sugar they consume, and that is how they, they also finish off very quickly, but very fit. That's the difference. Another person dies, with weak body, that's all. And so when we see these things, observe these things in its proper perspective, then we see this is what? Eating for health. For what? Why do we want this health for? The question arises in our mind, what do we want this health for? In other words, what do we live for? Why are we here? What is the purpose of our life? Well, when we begin to contemplate on these, the truths of life, the Four Noble Truths, we see that as long as there is life, there is existence in one form or another, there is this unsatisfactoriness. So the question now we should ask whether we want to prolong this unsatisfactoriness or not. Do we want to suffer? If you want to suffer, then yes, go on. Until you have enough suffering, then you say, enough, no more. Any sensible person want to get out of suffering. And that is what we say. Any sensible person, when they want to get out of suffering, that should be our purpose. The purpose is to put an end to suffering. So when we begin to see it in its proper perspective, in other words, when we begin to see our purpose, the purpose of life, in fact, the Four Noble Truths, when it is understood in its proper perspective, it really establishes in the individual a proper sense of purpose and direction in life. For the one thing is, when we see unsatisfactoriness, we want to get out of unsatisfactoriness, get out of dukkha, reduce our dukkha. So in other words, that is the purpose. The purpose of our life is to overcome suffering, to reduce suffering as much as possible, and eventually to put an end to it once and for all. And then, with this sense of purpose, the next question arises, what is the direction to take? How are we going to live this life? And the Fourth Noble Truth, which is the path, the way that leads to the cessation of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path, that is the path that points out the direction. So you see how the purpose and direction in life. Once the individual has a proper sense of direction, purpose, direction in life, then all the energy will converge. All the energy will be directed towards that cause. And there will not be any diffused energy or wasted energy like the weeds in the ocean. When the waves blow this way, they go hither, thither, here, there. And so also many people without any proper sense of purpose and direction in life, little while they come here, little while they go there, little while they change the job, jump here, jump there, and then they back to square one. And so it is important to have a proper sense of purpose and direction in life. And so when we come back to the question of happiness, one kind of happiness is that happiness or the sensual pleasures which we derive through material things. Then there is another kind of happiness which does not depend on material things. Like those of you who have been sitting in the pagoda in the morning and evening, were you happy? How was your happiness there? How do you experience that happiness? Quiet. The mind becomes calm, becomes quiet. There is no television, no radio program, no music before them. But in other words, their minds are free from all these distractions, and they are able to maintain the calmness, the quietness within them. That is the peace of mind. And that is what we call the peace within. Now when we free our mind, free the mind from what? Free the mind from desires, free the mind from hatred, free the mind from confusion. When the mind is free of these craving, hatred, confusion, then we experience the calmness the quietness within ourselves. And that is that real peace within us. But of course, as long as our minds are not trained, as long as our minds are not strong, this calmness, this peace of mind is only for a little while. It's only very short-lived. And then next moment you begin to experience leg pain. But when you concentrate again on one object, when your concentration is there, then the pain goes away again. So your mind again becomes free. And so now we see how by culturing, by training the mind, we will be able to develop longer periods of calmness, longer periods whereby the mind will remain in that peaceful state. In other words, where there is no craving, there is no desire, there is no lust, there is no hatred, there is no aversion. Then the mind, when the mind is free from craving, free from aversion, that mind is stable. Then, when the mind is calm, when the mind is stable, when the mind is at equilibrium, then that mind is clear and can see. The mind is bright, the mind is luminous, and it will be able to see, penetrate into the true nature of things, particularly, especially with regards to the true nature of mind and body. In other words, the true nature of ourselves. And that is hard, we say, when we talk about happiness, nirodha. Nirodha is the cessation of suffering. Now, how did the Buddha realize this cessation of suffering? Well, the Buddha, of course, he had, before he became enlightened, he had studied under different religious teachers to enter different methods of calming down his mind. And he did all those, what kind of meditation? Samatha, right? Yes, samatha meditation. And he was able to reach the highest level that the teachers could teach them, until the teacher says, you know what I know. Now, I cannot teach you anymore. That's it. That's the highest that I know. So, you can go and teach others. But the highest that they know, the Buddha was not sufficient. He realized that that highest level was still insufficient because he was not able to see, he was not able to realize his true nature. So that is what makes the Buddha go on further on his own. And when the Buddha realized, when he sat in his quietness and calmness, he realized, he saw. When he gained his enlightenment, what happened on the night of his enlightenment? You know the life story of the Buddha? Three important things took place on the night of his enlightenment. Because when we talk about enlightenment, we should have some idea. Now the Buddha told us of his experience on the very night of his enlightenment. Three things took place. And the night, of course, was divided into different phases, different watches. 3 watches of the night, 3 periods of the night. The first period of the night was from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Then the second period from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. These are the three different watches, three different periods of the night. When he was seated there, when wisdom dawned upon his mind, what happened was, during the first watch of the night, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., he was able to see. He saw his previous birth. He saw his past lives. First, he was able to see one, the last birth, the last life. And then he saw two of them, 3, 4, up to 5. And then he saw 10, 20, 30, 40, up to 50. And then he went on to see in multiples, 100, 1,000, 10,000. He was able to recall his previous life, his past life. And in detail, he saw who the father was, who the mother was, where he was born, what he was. Now, that was the knowledge which arose in him. That is what we call Pubbhe Nivasana Sati Jnana. That is, the knowledge with regards to previous existence, the knowledge with regards to past lives. Then, after that, he turned his mind, and when the mind was again calm, clear, after seeing his previous birth, another knowledge arose in his mind. And with this knowledge, he saw how beings passing away, how a certain being passes away and then are reborn, is reborn in another plane of existence. And he saw one being and another being like this. He saw more and more beings. How these beings die and then they are reborn in other planes of existence according to their actions, because he saw them, this being, very ugly being, but very honest, very kind, and give a lot of robes to other monks, and then in his next life he is born very beautiful. And then on the other hand, a very, very rich, wealthy man, but very proud, very miserly, very thrifty, very stingy. Then when he dies, next moment he is born in a very miserable condition. So he was, in other words here, that the Buddha saw how the law of karma functions. He was able to see very clearly. In other words, he understood karma, how this action gives rise to this effect. This action, when these conditions are there, this effect arises. And then, during the third watch of the night, the final watch of the night, from 2 to 6 o'clock in the morning, what happened? Another knowledge arose. And this knowledge, he saw how, he turned his attention and he saw how things arose dependent on causes, conditions. And you too can see these things in a matter of degree. Now, if you watch closely, you see pain arise. When the pain arises in your body, what happens to your body? Becomes tense, isn't it? The muscles become tense, right? And as soon as the pain goes, what happens to the muscles? Relax, right? So you see how it is dependent. The pain, when this pain arises, the muscles tense up. This thing happens. When this happens, what other things happen? You observe, when you observe carefully, when the muscle tense up, then your body also, the other parts of your body also become tense. When become tense, then your body becomes hard and stiff. Now, you see how, in other words, the Buddha, when he observed carefully, he was able to see the cycle of events that takes place, in other words, dependent origination. How things arises dependent on conditions, dependent on causes. Nothing arises from nothing. Something to arise, there must be something else. There must be causes, there must be conditions. So, when he contemplated, when he turned his mind, he saw how, when craving, when desire arises in the mind, then what happens? Dukkha arises. You too can see this. If you observe carefully, little while, when you sit, your mind becomes calm, very quiet, and then you get some very pleasant sensation, and then you want some more, that pleasant sensation, no? Then you cling. There's craving there. You want some more of that pleasant sensation. Just as about, if you watch carefully, just as the craving arises, then the pain arises. The pleasant sensation goes and unpleasant ones come up. And then, when the unpleasant ones come up, then there's aversion. You want to get rid of it. And when it gets rid, when it goes, then again you become pleasant. Oh, you become very happy. When you cling to that happiness, then again another big dose of pain arises. Like that. Now this is how, when you see this, you can see cause, effect. Craving, dukkha, craving, dukkha, craving, dukkha. And then again, when he turned his mind, he saw how this craving can turn to aversion. And then when there is a lot of craving, there's a lot of aversion, how the mind also can become confused and become what you call deluded mind.